Good afternoon. We're back with another episode of the Lord of the Rings LCG Progression Series. Today it's a card review of the Trouble in Tharbad Adventure Pack. So the last two have been first introducing and then adding Sylvan synergies. Let's see what we got here. The hero is Haldir of Lorien. Okay, so we get a hero version of Haldir. 9 threat, 2/3/1, 3 health, ranged. So his stats aren't good enough on their own, although I do like the 9 threat. And 3 attack is not bad for a lore hero. I think that might be tied, that is tied for the highest base attack for a lore hero, tied with Glorfindel. And Glorfindel lore version never gets played, it's always the spirit version. So I like the 3 threat, or the 3 attack. And the 9 threat's not bad. If you have not engaged an enemy this round, exhaust Haldir of Lorien to declare him as an attacker and resolve his attack against an enemy not engaged with you. Limit once per round. Okay, so not engaged with you means staging area if you're solo. In multiplayer, this will have more uses. However, this is odd wording. Against an enemy not engaged with you. Well, if you're in multiplayer and there's an enemy not engaged with you, you can simply attack it in combination with another player usually. But let's talk about solo. Is this good, being able to attack an enemy in the staging area? Well, you can certainly make Haldir buff. There'll be situations where this is really good. There'll be a situation, for example, where you could run a combo deck. So I just played the 3 trials where I made Elrond super buff with Steward of Gondor and Gondorian Fire. You could do that with Haldir, and then you could really do some damage against enemies in the staging area. So it's similar to what Dunhere can do. He can attack at an enemy in the staging area for 3 attack. Dunhere has slightly lower threat but also less willpower, so he can't contribute as much to the quest. And he's not ranged or Sylvan. I don't know if the Sylvan matters for a hero to be Sylvan. I don't think it does yet, except for Olorien. I like this card a little bit. It synergizes with other rangers as well for the ranger bow strategy, which I've used against some tough quests. Its threat is decent. His threat is decent. His attack is almost good. His ability could be buffed to be useful, similar to Dunhere. Now, would you play Haldir or Dunhere if you were going to play one or the other? Here's Dunhere for comparison. He's got 1 less threat and 1 less willpower and 1 less attack when he's attacking something that's engaged with you, but 1 more health. I don't think that matters too much. So Haldir is better in terms of stats that you get for the threat. He has ranged, which can matter in multiplayer. I don't think his ability matters too much in multiplayer, though it could, I suppose, especially if you buffed him. I think you run Haldir because there's a lot of situations. 2 willpower versus 1 is actually a really big difference. And B, there's a lot of situations where you want to attack something engaged with you, and Haldir's better at that. So I think he's an upgrade over Dunhere, and I like him a little bit. I think he'll have some use against some difficult questing situations in the future. Alright, Herald of Anorian. 2 cost, 1/0/1. You may give Herald of Anorian Doom 2 when you play it from your hand. If you do, it gains response after you play Herald of Anorian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I'm not. Choose a player. That player may put into play one ally from his hand with a printed cost of 2 or lower. So he's free if you give him Doom 2. He converts 2 threat to 2 resource. Free is good, but 1/0/1 is weak, so this card doesn't scale well into the late game, particularly if you're running into threat problems later. Early he can be good. Late he's bad. Early he could be good. He could help you get off to a fast start. So in decks that have a weakness for that, where you're trying to... I think you'd want to play a turn 1 or turn 2 for maximum effect, which means you need to reliably have turn resources to play it. So I'm not sure if it's good in a Tri-Sphere deck with leadership. You could only play it on turn 2. But you could have a pretty strong turn 2. He might be good in that deck. In a Tri-Sphere leadership deck that's running a bunch of 2-cost allies. He could even be good in the Sylvan deck with... although the Celeborn starts with higher threat of 11, so maybe not. I think he might be worth playing with a little bit. Especially if you can afford the threat cost early. If your deck is starting at over 30 threat, probably not. But if you're starting in the mid-20s, he could really help you get off to a fast start, and that's really, really important in solo play. It's not going to be good late, but he could rectify the weakness of a deck early, and that's good. If you're weak on questing early, he's not going to help you with battle. But you could play him plus, say, I don't know, Arwen or something. And the thing is, the thing you play doesn't have to be on Sphere. So that's helpful as well. I like this card. I'll probably try it, at least. It's not like a must-have card, I don't think. Haldir could potentially be must-have in against some situations. He could be very, very strong because the ability to buff him to insane heights. And then you could use it to attack the staging area against a tough boss. He's also ranged, so he could potentially use a card like Great Yew Bow, or what is it, Hands on the Bow, I think? Yeah, I think Haldir could potentially be a card to help defeat some difficult quests, but we'll see. I'll give him a try anyway when a difficult quest comes up. Olorian, 1 cost, attached to a hero, exhaust Olorian to lower the cost of the next Sylvan ally played this phase by 1. Well, I've been running Celeborn and 2 Sylvans, but the problem is one of them is 1 cost, so it would only work on one of the cards I play. I think this is good if you're playing several Sylvans that can take advantage of it, and you're playing leadership. So yeah, I mean, if you get, say, 2 cost reduction out of it, I think it's okay. If you get 3, I think it's good. So, are you going to be reliably playing this and then playing 3 Sylvans that can take advantage of it? That's the question, and if the answer is yes, then this card is good, and if not, it's probably going to be okay. It's probably never going to be bad, though. So, upside and not a lot of downside. I like the card for a deck that's running Sylvans that can take advantage of it. If you're just running 1 Sylvan that can take advantage of it, like I currently am, then perhaps not. But if you got a few, then yeah, I think this card is good. Gwaihir. Hope that's pronounced right. Gwaihir. 5 cost, 2/3/1, 4 health. He's overstated like every eagle ever. Or he's understated like every eagle ever. Gwaihir cannot have restricted attachments. After Gwaihir enters play, search your discard pile for an eagle ally and put it into play under your control. At the end of the round, if that ally is still in play, add it to your hand. Interesting. Well, Generally, what the decks that I designed, you don't end up with a lot of allies in the discard pile. I run Eagles in the Siege deck that I play. And you can get a Winged Guardian in the discard pile every now and then. In that situation, this card could be good. It would essentially lower the cost to probably 3. Well, I don't think that's exactly right because you only get it for 1 round. Probably about 4. It's still overstated. Yeah, I mean, or it's still overcosted. I think I really like the idea of this card and I want to like it, but I think it just costs too much. Much too much. Should probably be like 4 and then it would be good. Yeah, it would be good if it costed 4, but 5 is just too much. And they probably did 5 because there's like potentially some devastating combos that could land. Maybe they want to include or leave themselves room to develop Eagle allies that are good later and not have Gwai just like be broken or something with different combos that discard cards, or I don't know. It seems like he's probably overcosted for a reason, but he is overcosted by 1, I think. At the moment. Maybe some future combo will make this good though. That's very possible. Because the effect is complicated and there's room for it to be good given certain cards. At the moment I think he's overcosted by 1 though. Pursuing the enemy, 0 cost tactics card. Return a Sylvan ally you control to your hand to choose a player. Deal 1 damage to each enemy engaged with that player. Okay, so if you're returning a cheap Sylvan ally, you're getting like 1 willpower in addition to this effect. For probably 1 cost. And dealing 1 damage to each enemy engaged with the player. How many damage would you need to do for this to be good? 1 damage per enemy isn't often that good, although sometimes it can save you a turn of attacks. I guess you'd run this in a situation where you find that the typical enemy is just 1 away from being killed by your usual combat hero or your usual combat hero combination. In that situation, this card would be very good. Otherwise, I don't see it doing that much. Except returning a Sylvan ally to your hand can be good if you have a Inter's play effect that's good. So if you're running that, then I'd definitely run this card, probably just for that effect, if you're running tactics. But I don't think you're running this just for the deal 1 damage, and just for the bonus from Celeborn playing the ally again. You'd have to deal, like, probably 3 damage or so to make this worth it, when it's just 1 per enemy, to make that a good card. And that situation's very rare in solo. Maybe it makes sense in multiplayer, I don't know. But in solo it doesn't do that enough unless you have strong interplay effects with your Sylvans. Courage Awakened. 1 cost, choose a hero. That hero gets +2 willpower until the end of the phase. Then if your threat is 20 or less, and this is the first time you played a copy of Courage Awakened this round, return this card to your hand instead of discarding it. Okay, so it's a secrecy card where you can get 2 willpower per turn for 1 threat. You can get that with Boffer already. And potentially get a free card sometimes. So I think this is overshadowed by other willpower effects that are better. If it were free, it'd be good. But I think this is overshadowed by Boffer primarily. And there's probably others as well. Free to choose, 0 cost. After your threat is raised by an encounter card effect, reduce your threat by an equal amount. Okay, well, Elrond's Council costs 0, and you get 3 threat reduction and 1 questing power. So how much threat reduction would you need from free to choose for it to be good? Probably like 4. 4 would be... 3 would be a little bit worse than Elrond's Council because you don't get the 1 questing power. 4 would be good. How often does an encounter card effect raise your threat by 4? There's a couple of cards that do, but it's rare. Very rare. I guess you'd run this as a specific tech card. If there's that one encounter card that raises your threat by 1 for each character committed to the quest. You could run this as a tech card against that. But most of the time this is not going to do much. It's going to sit in your hand, maybe reduce your threat by 1 or 2, not do much else. So it's niche. Galadriel Minstrel, 2 cost, 1/0/0, 1 health. After Galadriel Minstrel enters play, search the top 5 cards of your deck for an event card. Add it to your hand. So it reduces the luck factor when you really need events. This is good in a Sylvan deck. You get 2 willpower, and it's good synergy with cards that return a Sylvan to your hand. Yeah, I like it. I'd run it in a Sylvan deck where I'm playing lore. Even if I wasn't playing that many events, I'd probably still run it. Because it's already giving you 2 willpower for 2 cost for at least a turn when you have Celeborn. If you're running Sylvans, and especially if you're running Sylvan cards that return a Sylvan to your hand, and you're running lore, I'd play this. I think it's good in that situation. Lembas. 1 cost, play only if you control a Noldor or a Sylvan hero attached to a hero. Discard Lembas to ready attached hero and heal 3 damage from it. Okay, so you just keep it until you need it and then you heal 3 damage. I almost never play healing cards. I'd rather play damage prevention. And this is only good on a Noldor or a Sylvan, but it's a card to keep in mind should healing be required, and it has been in the past. And it may be again in the future, there may be future combos, so we'll keep it in mind. But I'm just not personally a fan of healing cards in this particular game, so I have never used a healing card in a deck to beat a really difficult quest. Though I'm certainly not ruling out the possibility for the future. And I would guess at some point it'll even be required in a quest, but we'll see. Defender of the Nath. 3 cost, 0/1/2, 2 health. After a Sylvan ally you control leaves play, ready Defender of the Nath. Well, the only reason you want action advantage like this is so you can quest and do the ally's purpose, which would be defending, I guess. Or so you can defend or attack twice. He's not powerful enough, really, to contribute much to an attack twice, and he's not powerful enough at defending to defend twice. Probably gonna get 1 defend out of him, and then the second one will kill him. Unless you buffed him somehow. And that's only if you're defending against smaller guys. If you go up against a 3 attack enemy, and he gets a shadow card for +1, he's just dead, and you don't get to use the second one. The effect is good in a card with higher stats. I don't think it's going to be particularly effective in this card, though. And the card's overstated, or overcosted, I mean, and understated, which means it needs its ability to be useful to justify its cost, and the ability is not going to be useful very often due to its low shields and HP. Unless there's some card in the future that buffs Sylvan's HP or shield or something, I don't see this being good. So if you're buying this AP, it's going to be for Haldir for some combo deck or something like that, or a lore deck where you need attack. Because I think he's the best lore hero for attack if you're running Monosphere lore. I think he's better than Glorfindel because of the lower threat. Better than Faramir because he more consistently has the attack power. And he's ranged for multiplayer. And he's got that ability where you can attack the staging area if you need to. So Haldir is definitely worth a look in some situations. He's not like a must-have like Glorfindel is, the Spirit version. But he could be very helpful against some very difficult quests. Or very interesting in a Monosphere lore deck. And Herald of Anorian could be good in some decks where you're running, where you can afford the threat cost and you're running 2 cost allies. That happens. It's not every deck, but it does happen. I may try him out in the Sylvan deck, I'm not sure. So, thanks for watching.